It's a rainy Thursday here in Seoul. Hello, I'm Lee Ji-yoon. Coming up on today's edition of Business Daily. Korean startups see their first double-digit growth in over a year in exports, and a sign of hope for the country's overall outbound shipments. Korea might face record damages from the latest bird flu outbreak, with more than 10% of all poultry in the country already having been culled. We'll sit down with an expert to talk about this. Korea's central bank says the country's growth rate for next year is highly likely to fall short of its initial projection of 2.8%, amid growing external and internal uncertainties. For more on this, we now connect to our Lee Ju-young on the phone. So Ju-young, can you give us more details?
Ji-yoon, in a briefing at the National Assembly on Thursday, the Bank of Korea said while it still believes the domestic economy will gradually recover, the country may not be able to reach the bank's 2.8% projection. The BOK says this is due to growing downside risks like rate hikes by the U.S. Federal Reserve, growing trade protectionist sentiment around the world, and ongoing political turmoil in the country. This statement comes after some local institutions, including Korea Economic Research Institute, LG Economic Research Institute, and Korea Development Institute, have already estimated next year's economy to expand in the lower 2% range. The government is also likely to lower next year's outlook to the 2% range from its initial 3% when it announces its economic policy guidelines for 2017 next Thursday. This has been Lee Ju-young for Business Daily.
Foreign investors are still snapping up Korean stocks at a healthy rate, despite the recent rate hike in the U.S. Korea Exchange says that as of Wednesday, foreigners held a record $389 billion worth of stocks on the Korean market, up more than $10 billion from the end of September. So far this month, foreign investors have been net buyers of Korean stocks to the tune of more than $740 million. Analysts say the Fed's rate increase and a strong dollar might normally cause foreign investors to offload Korean stocks, but the net purchase indicates that they have high confidence that Korea's Kospi can weather the storm. Some positive signs on the country's economic front. Korea's budding startups are showing robust activities in the field of exports. Our Shin Se-min has more.
After months of disappointing export figures, finally a glint of light on the trade front for Korea. Korea International Trade Association said Thursday that outbound shipments by promising local startups that qualify for government support reached close to $1.7 billion as of the end of last month, up over 21% on year. It's the sector's first double-digit growth since in June 2015 and marks the 7th consecutive month of growth. It's also a massive increase compared to overall exports that only managed to grow 2.7% on year in November. Strong exports by these smaller startups are expected to help the nation's overall shipments, which have been on a downward trend for months on end. Korea's total exports had slumped for 19 months in a row since January of last year, before seeing a slight rebound in August this year and another jump last month. Breaking it down by country, as of this year, total exports by promising startups to the United States jumped 8.2% on year to $2.1 billion. The figure for Vietnam spiked by almost 19%. On the other hand, shipments to China edged down 0.2% to $4 billion. The slight drop to the world's second largest economy has been attributed to economic measures by Beijing, allegedly in response to Seoul's decision to deploy a powerful U.S. anti-missile system to the Korean peninsula. Shin Se-min, Business Daily.
SK Hynix is going to invest more than $2.5 billion to expand its production facilities in Korea and in China. The investment plan comes as the Korean memory chip maker plans to take advantage of growing global demand for mobile and data storage. It will set aside $1.8 billion to build a brand new NAND flash chip production factory in the Korean city of Cheongju. Now, the remaining $803 million will be used to upgrade its existing DRAM chip production facilities in China. SK Hynix currently trails Samsung Electronics in the NAND market. Samsung has been dominating the high-end market with its 3D NAND chips. The government is rolling up its sleeves to facilitate the application of smart information technology to state projects considered vital to the fourth industrial revolution. And our Kim Ji-young gives us the rundown of the government's plans for next year.
Korea's central and municipal governments are planning to spend a staggering $3.4 billion next year to incorporate smart information technology into administrative tasks. Around $754.4 thousand of the budget will be spent on a new cybersecurity system for the Ministry of Interior that will incorporate machine learning to fight off cyber attacks. More than $4.6 million will be allocated to the Ministry of Health and Welfare to build a big data analysis platform to provide personalized healthcare services. Nearly $9 million will be injected into the Ministry of Labor and Employment to set up a job portal site that collates information on job openings nationwide. The site will use big data technology to recommend job offers tailored to the applicant's interests and qualifications. A combined $270.7 million will be injected into state infrastructure projects in the water, energy, and transportation sectors for the advancement of smart cities. The Ministry of the Interior will also spend around $84.9 million to build another government-integrated data center in the city of Daegu, in addition to the existing centers in Daejeon and Gwangju. The center will store government documents and upgrade data protection systems by replacing the current equipment for cloud computing. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Korean Air pilots have started a 10-day strike, calling for a 29% wage hike after negotiations with the company broke down. According to a report submitted by the airline, Korea's largest flag carrier will cancel 24 international flights and 112 domestic flights between now and December 31st. The international flights to be canceled include those to and from Japan's Narita and Osaka, Hong Kong, and Dubai. Passengers who have already booked flights will be offered other flight options or full refunds. Union leaders insist the strike and wage hike demands are an attempt to ensure safety, as many veteran pilots are being replaced by inexperienced pilots. The Transport Ministry says it will keep a close eye on the airline and the strike for any flight disruptions or safety concerns. Tobacco companies here in Korea will be required to add a new element to cigarette packs starting Friday: graphic photos or images warning of the health risks associated with smoking. Given that it takes more than a month for producers to distribute their products to stores, cigarette packs with photo and written warnings are expected to start appearing in late January. But 6 retail stores here in Seoul, including in Gangnam and Hongdae, busy districts within the capital, will display the products from Friday, so smokers can see the new packs from the first day the law comes into effect. The images are the latest in a series of anti-smoking measures that Korea's health ministry has been taking to cut down smoking rates. $20 million and more. That's how many chickens and ducks have been culled here in Korea since the first case of bird flu was confirmed back in mid-November. Prices of eggs are skyrocketing, and chicken is expected to get more expensive in the coming weeks. So with the country going through its worst ever bird flu outbreak, how much damage is expected? Let's find out.
The H5N6 virus is spreading at an alarming pace in Korea, creating the worst bird flu crisis since 2014, when 19.37 million birds were culled due to the H5N8 virus. The Agriculture Ministry has raised the warning level to the highest in its 4-tier system. Over 20 million birds have been culled so far, accounting for more than 10% of the total poultry being raised in the country. A recent report shows that when 10% of the poultry population is slaughtered, financial losses amount to over $412 million. Should more than 30% be infected, damages could reach up to 1.2 billion. Egg prices have surged while the cost of chicken is also expected to jump next month due to the supply shortage. So what can be done to help hardest hit farmers and industries and minimize economic losses from the fast-spreading virus?
And tell us more about this, Professor Kim Se-wan from Ewha Women's University joins us in the studio today. So good to see you.
Pleasure to be here.
So now things are looking especially bad this year, with the number of birds being culled having reached the highest level to date. So how does this year's outbreak compare to previous outbreaks?
We have had damages from bird flu almost every year, but this year's damage is larger than previous years in terms of insteps and breadth. The worst damages from bird flu is 2014's. Almost 14 birds were destroyed in 7 months. But in this year, almost 20 million birds were destroyed in a single month.
So you meant back in 2014, 14 million birds.
14 million,
culled.
exactly.
All right. And like we heard in the report, Korea's financial loss from this year's bird flu outbreak could amount to a minimum of $412 million. Can you tell us more about this?
Right. According to Hyundai Economic Research Institution's estimation, the size of the damage depends on infection rate over all birds' population. For example, when infection rate is 10%, which is today's rate, the damage is going to be 0.5 trillion won from all related industries.
Wow.
But when it increase up to 20%, which is the highest level, the damage is going to be 1.5 trillion won.
Now, let's go into this a little bit further. So what impact is the latest outbreak having on related businesses as well as industries?
I think the most affected is local fried chicken restaurant industries. They are mostly small-sized, self-employed workers. And in addition to that, all distribution industries and food industries and these kind of industries will be much affected, up to 2 trillion size of the GDP.
Wow. And also like bread companies too, right? And
Exactly.
bread businesses,
That
'cause they
includes
use
food
eggs.
industry.
Okay. All right. Well, obviously, with this many chickens being skyrocketing, the price of eggs is also surging. So what measures should the government put forth to deal with surging prices as well as the shortage in supply?
Well, I believe there was a mismanagement in coping with outbreak of the AI and some problems in eggs wholesale market system. But the problem is there's no clear solution in handling the shortages of eggs. The eggs price actually skyrocketed up to 25% in a single month.
Wow.
The only solution right now is importing eggs from foreign countries.
Now, going along with that, the government is also thinking about flying over eggs from other countries. But how effective do you think this will be?
I'm pretty much negative on that measure in terms of feasibility. For example, we consume domestically over 40 million eggs per day, and single air cargo carries up to 2.5 million eggs in a single flight. So that means, technically speaking, we need 16 cargo flights every day for eggs.
Wow.
So that makes the price of eggs much higher, and therefore we need to import eggs from nearby countries through shipping.
All right. Well, how long do you think the effects of the bird flu will last, and how much financial and economic losses should we brace for from here on out?
Well, the number of birds destroyed already reached a record high compared to any years before. But I believe that the good benchmark in answering that question is 2014's, one of the worst in the past example. So the problem, the outbreak started in January of 2014, but officially it ended in July of the year. So that means it took 7 months in finishing the outbreak of the AI.
Now, what impact do you think this will have on domestic consumption then? I mean, it's already hitting lows right now.
So poultry industry itself is not a large part of the domestic GDP. It is only less than 0.2% of the total GDP. But there are quite a few related industries like distribution, food industry, and restaurant industries. So all these industries will be affected thanks to problems in poultry industries.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back tomorrow with more business news that matters to you. Until then, goodbye.